People slating Alexander Isak. His name is being dragged through the mud. But honestly, he does not deserve this hate. The articles today that have come out, the claims that are being made by Luke Edwards, by The Telegraph, Craig Hope as well, talking about the toxicity that this man is almost single-handedly responsible for, is an abomination beyond belief. We saw this type of hit piece. We saw this type of work cruelly, disgustingly done to Raheem Sterling almost a decade or so ago. And it still follows the man around now. The same disgusting and nasty tactics are being put out there. And this time, match fixing implications, match fixing accusations being implied and pushed via the mainstream media. So much of it doesn't make sense. So much of it, if you engage your brain, tells you that we, the footballing public, are being absolutely lied to again. And my ask of you all is do not be sucked into it. It's bullshit. It's BS. For me, I do not believe it to be the truth. Hit the like button though, please, because I'd like to get this video out to as many people as possible. Share it across your social media platforms, but also subscribe and turn on that bell notification button as well. But what is the claim? And first of all, we'll start with what Luke Edwards has posted this morning, or late last night, sorry. He said, some insiders suggested that from April onwards, that is April 2025 until the end of the season, Isak was behaving and playing like someone who did not want the team to qualify for the Champions League, as he knew it would make it harder for him to explain to Howe and supporters why he wanted to go. So now, according to Luke Edwards, it has told him that from April, throughout April and May, Alexander Isak essentially was downing tools, trying to fix the outcome of the games to ensure that Newcastle United did not qualify for the Champions League. So it would be easier for him to force a move and get a move to Liverpool Football Club this summer. You've got to think about this a little deeper. You've got to break this down a little deeper. You've got to think about it a little harder, what we're saying here. The team that said they will not be selling him, that said he was the best striker in the world in April and in May and in June and in July, a club that continually tried to convince him to stay all summer, consistently were offering him new deals to remain at the football club. They are now claiming he was at best unprofessional. At best unprofessional. At worst, attempting to match fix, deliberately play badly, deliberately cost Newcastle to hurt them to benefit himself. And I'm going to put it out at the beginning of the video because it makes more sense. Why were they trying to renew his contract? Why? I don't understand. Why were they trying to renew the contract? Why were they trying to get him to stay? Why would they not just want to cash in quickly and move on an unprofessional, match-fixing, insubordinate, disgraceful professional? A terrible man. Why? Why were they so open to a man like this? You tried to sabotage them to reintegrate. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. By saying Isak was behaving like someone that did not want their team to qualify for the Champions League, it creates what I call a loaded implication. They're not quite saying he match fixed, but they're leaving it open to interpretation. They don't specify that he wasn't. They don't specify that you could question his professionalism. It leaves it so open to interpretation. It says, even if the intent was to describe a drop in focus or motivation, the phrasing strongly suggests at best, that the player might have been hoping for worse results, which I think is dangerously close to how people talk about match fixing. I think this is horrendous. While this piece, this article stops short of directly accusing him of match fixing, the kind of wording can and will now be used against Alexander Isak. There's already the views that he's a rat. with the views that he's a disgrace. Even though Wissa did very, very similar to get a move to Newcastle and he's getting a hero's welcome. It's crazy. The same media outlets are not treating him in the same way. And I wonder why that is. In other news as well, Craig Hope has also been on the attack today talking about the July civil war that broke out. And there's a passage from it here that says how Isak had not spoken since the player's statement, and senior players within the dressing room were angered by his conduct. He goes, we were told of one player having to be calmed down by a compatriot after a meeting on the subject, which was the strength of his feelings for honouring the badge. And they're doing this whole, everybody else in the club loves the badge, they're professionals, he's a bad guy, we're all together. Trying to make Alexander Isak's behaviour look almost abnormal in many, many ways. And I just think this is it's a massive hit piece. It's a massive attack. It's a massive sort of, this was spoken about a little while back, by the way. It's obviously been sort of republished and repushed by aggregators today to show that Alexander Isak is this nasty, horrible man, unprofessional. And I just think this is a very dangerous narrative to create. We have seen the abuse. We have seen the attacks. We have seen the constant nonsense that Raheem Sterling has faced. And I have a horrible feeling that we're going to see very similar now with Alexander Isak. And we just don't need this in the game because we know where it's going to go. It will start off as people calling out his professionalism. Then he'll be getting booed at every single stadium. And it will encourage people to abuse him. It will encourage people to take that abuse about his footballing and professional approach. And you know it's going to become personal. You know that his race is going to be brought into this and other factors of his life. How do we know this? Because it's the way it always goes. Every time there's these hit pieces, every time individuals are attacked, the level of the criticism turns into abuse because the lines are always blurred. The abuse then becomes vile. It goes beyond just calling out the professionalism and day-to-day pejoratives. It will end up in racist abuse for Alexander Isak. And the problem is, none of it makes sense. As I said a few minutes ago, Newcastle spent the entirety of the summer trying to convince him to stay and offering him new deals. I don't believe there is a Newcastle fan worth his salt or her salt. There isn't a Newcastle fan with a brain that's going to read this Luke Edwards article, read that passage and say, do you know what? Yeah, I saw that. I mean, Alexander Isak back end of last season in the run-in, so in the periods that they're talking about, scored in the win against Brentford, played in the win over Leicester and played well, assisted in the win over Manchester United, scored in the win over Crystal Palace. Yes, he was in the team that lost 4-1 to Villa. But then the next match, scored in the win over Ipswich, scored in the draw. Without that goal, they lose the game against Brighton in the next match. Played 90 minutes and played well against Chelsea in the 2-0 win, which essentially clinched them a Champions League place. Wasn't in the squad for the Arsenal defeat. Didn't have a great game along with the rest of the team in fairness in the final day of the season, but they still were able to clinch the Champions League position. And if he was really trying to sabotage the season, why would he have gone on one of the best goal-scoring runs of any player between December and January? Why would he have done that? This man was fantastic in the cup final. And the article actually also pulls on this and says, read this bit. It says, on the eve of the final in March, Isak told the media that he had everything he wanted at Newcastle and insisted he was not thinking of a future away from the club. Now, again, this keeps being spoken about. What these players say publicly on a professional front may not be how they're feeling personally, because football fans can't handle the truth. We've got to stop holding football players accountable for touching the badge when they score goals and saying how much they love a club and a fan base. Let's live in reality. It then goes on to say, however, insiders say that Isak's behaviour changed again after the Wembley win. He became quiet and withdrawn. He was not focused or working hard in training. Again, you're offering a player that stopped working hard in training. You're talking about a player here that you're all calling the best striker in the world and praising his performances. Now you're trying to spin a lie that he wasn't training hard. He was trying to fix matches. He was trying to make you lose games. He was trying to stop you from qualifying for the Champions League. Why were they fighting so hard? Why were they at his house a week ago convincing him to change his mind? Absolute hit piece in every single stretch of the imagination. And I think football fans all around the world should come together to push back against this. I would like to see the other journalists come out and counter this. I'd like to see the player do something to counter this, because it's horrendous on every single level. As ever, though, look, I want your views. I want your opinions in the comments section below. Hit that like and that share button. Make sure you're subscribing, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.